when the sense of me is there is a part of it that believes that there's something inherently wrong with it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as that belief is ingrained there somewhere, the fixing or healing feels real and it feels like there is progress, that
Yes.
something's melting away.
Yes. Yes.
But at a certain point, it felt like it was just happening. And it was okay if I didn't heal. It was okay if this didn't go away. It didn't
Mhm.
make a difference anymore.
Right.
It didn't matter. And it felt like life was then just doing what it was doing. And it was then really obvious that this body could have never been perfect. And that was never the point of life. Really, there is no point of life, but it was never to perfect you.
Welcome to Letting Go and the Greatest Secret, where we explore the end of your suffering and the beginning of lasting happiness. I'm Hale Dwoskin, and today I'll be joined by Suzanne Chang. For Suzanne Chang, life was never comfortable, and it often felt painful to exist. This started an intense search for an answer. She had no clue this search could lead to the absolute dissolving of the illusion of separation. All time, space, and individuality disappeared. It is now clear to her that only life is living. Tell me a little bit about the story of Suzanne before the center started disappearing or leading up to that.
If I start from when I was really young, I was just uncomfortable, I think, in my own skin.
Mhm.
So maybe that was what started off the seeking. And then it was mainly like I think health issues where I started to get like cystic acne,
Mhm.
where then my self-image was really threatened and I felt so uncomfortable in my skin that it amplified the spiritual seeking. Like,
Yes.
why did I feel so terrible about myself? And why was the self-hatred unbearable?
Right.
Um, and then I heard things like about enlightenment and yeah. Then I got into like yoga, Buddhism. Um, yeah, I was seeking in all of these different ways, but I always felt like they were giving me more knowledge, more things to do,
Uh-huh.
how to fix yourself, how to be a better person, how to heal, how to be happy. And I think ultimately it was the simplicity of the radical message where it kind of cut through everything. And it finally allowed me to see that I didn't need to get anywhere. This was already it. I didn't need to heal myself or improve or become a better person. Like freedom can't be earned because it's already the case.
Yes, definitely.
And it was devastating because I think I had formed a spiritual identity through the seeking.
Yes.
I think that was the biggest thing, like the hardest thing to let go of. And obviously, I didn't do it, but through the grieving of that identity, I think, yeah, then there was a freedom beyond any sort of way of being or who I thought I was.
Mhm.
Yeah. So in a way, I'm really glad that everything was lost.
Great. And at the time, was it a relief, or was there just no one there to be relieved, or a little bit of both?
I think it oscillated between relief and devastation for a while.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I think when there was a deeper recognition of like, this is really the last major disappointment for the person.
Hmm.
It's just saying that you don't exist, you're not there.
Right, right.
So any future projection or wanting of something is just imagination. And there was real devastation. And
Hmm.
everything I found important to me had to dissolve in that. So it was actually quite a huge mourning process that happened for a while.
Hmm.
But I think only through that was there a real non-attachment to life anymore in any
Right,
way.
right,
There
right.
was no need for anything to be a certain way or no expectations of anything.
Okay. Uh, and uh, what when you I know you do Zoom meetings and you show up in front of a camera and speak. What how would you summarize how the non-dual message comes through there? Or how does it come through in this moment? I'll put it that
Mm,
way.
yeah. Yeah, speaking just happens
Yes.
and is quite simple. Um, there's no reason for speaking. There's no real agenda or yeah, reason for why it's happening. It just seems to want to happen. So it just simply happens.
Hmm.
And I think as long as others want to hear, like, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Hmm.
Um, but it does overall feel like nothing's wrong. Like no one needs to wake up or the sense of me doesn't need to dissolve for this to be whole because it already is. Um, so therefore, there's no momentum or motivation to really change anyone. But I think there's just maybe a love or joy for speaking about this. And so it happens. Um, yeah, and like Suzanne's reasons for, let's say, in the past wanting to be a spiritual teacher or like a spiritual something, all of that dissolved. So now there's no relationship in that way going on,
Hmm.
you know? I don't think of myself as anything. Like there's no label that feels true here anymore. And I'm never really talking to a someone. I there's just an obviousness that there's no one anywhere. And these words are just empty.
And if someone asks you what is freedom, or what is this thing that apparently happened there, how would you how would you describe it?
Um, so freedom was always the case. And it might have been veiled because of this energetic need for something else, for something other than this.
Yes.
And yeah, throughout all of that imaginary journey of my life, it was always the case. It was always here and fully available. Um, And yeah, life was never judging you. Life was never expecting anything of you.
Mm.
It's just it's really hard to put words to it because there's no quality to life or freedom, but in a way it was always just holding you, like embracing you, no matter what it looked like or felt like, what no matter what you were going through. Um, it doesn't demand anything from you.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. Life doesn't have demands or judgments.
Yeah.
And all demands and judgments are purely a figment of the, the seeking of the person.
Yeah.
That's clear.
It's amazing
Yeah.
to be really without any judgment. Like, obviously, the mind can still have these judgments that come up, but it's more about like the energetic belief that it's true. That completely goes. And it is really seen that no one, no one's really at fault, you know? No one's there. No one's in control. It's all just happening. How can you judge when it's just so clear that that's the case?
It's true. Who's going to judge?
Yeah, there's no one there, no one here.
It's just life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Lester Levinson, my original mentor in this field, used to have this expression, um, first you see it as a dream, and then you see it as a dream that never really was. And uh, recently I've been seeing that statement as more talking about the person as opposed to just what's apparently happening. But I'd like your take on that quote. What does that elicit?
Yeah, so the dream, the person, the sense of me, it's all pointing to the same thing in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just an energetic sense. But it's inclusive of the energetic sense of time
Right.
and space and division, separation. I'm here, you're there. Um, I'm in relation to everything. It creates this magnificent effect, and a whole dream world is created,
Yes.
but it feels absolutely real when it's in effect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so sometimes I don't like to just dismiss it because there's so much beauty in that, and there's so much um, it's hard to land anywhere, but it really seems like there's no mistakes. So, like,
Yes.
if the dream is in effect, that is no better or worse than anything else. It's not really seen as a problem.
Yes.
Um,
It's only the seeker that thinks there's a problem. It's not
yeah. And yeah, I can't help but think that it's a problem. They're a problem.
right.
Everything's a problem. My life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember also thinking, um, like on the spiritual path,
Mhm.
mm, maybe I did it for a certain reason. I'm not sure, but me, there was just a longing to be in solitude. So I had kind of secluded myself from a lot of external things.
Yes.
But even then, there was suffering. There was a despair. There was a, oh no, another day every time I woke up and nothing was happening in the physical world, you know?
Yes, yes.
And so when I really saw that, I it was clear to me that even the peace that could be so-called owned by the person is just another fleeting thing. Um, Obviously there's nothing wrong with that with the person, but it just it cannot rest. It cannot be at peace for very long. And I think that is what kind of convinced at least this system that that was not the answer.
Right.
And I think that was the opening for this more radical message to really pierce through.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and it really resonated that yeah, whole thing, the whole thing is a dream,
Yes.
and when every last bit of it does dissolve, it is obvious that none of it ever happened.
Right.
It's crazy.
Quite. So, again, this freedom or liberation or boundlessness that is, does anything that the apparent person uh, does leading up to it have any bearing on it at all?
Mm. So I think in the disappearance of the whole effect,
Mhm.
time and space, the me completely dissolves. So the the whole story just completely collapses. So in a way, I can say no, but also in a way, I have an understanding of how it feels
Mhm.
when that feels absolutely real,
Yes.
and that certain things can melt away the intense contraction of that sense of me, can loosen it a little
Mhm.
bit,
Mhm.
but it's mainly energetic because it's completely in the body.
Yes.
For me, it felt cellular, and I could not have, done that myself. I couldn't have released that myself. It
Mhm.
was, uh, yeah, it was a lot of maybe different things that really helped dissolve the story. And for here, it felt more like a healing before it completely dissolved, before it was able to be released from the system.
Mhm.
Because there were just certain things that were, let's say, traumatic, or yeah, it felt impossible to let go of. Um, yeah, so in that way, it was quite beautiful. It was an absolute and total healing of the person before it completely just vanished.
Mhm. And after it vanished, was there was there still a healing that continued even after, or was there just nothing to heal anymore?
Yeah, it becomes a blurry line because when when the sense of me is there, there is a part of it that believes that there's something inherently wrong with it sometimes.
Mhm.
And as long as that belief is ingrained there somewhere, the fixing or healing feels real, and it feels like there is progress, that something's melting away. But at a certain point, it felt like it was just happening, and it was okay if I didn't heal. It was okay if this didn't go away. It didn't make a difference anymore. It didn't matter. Um, and it felt like life was then just doing what it was doing. And it was then really obvious that this body could never have could have never been perfect, and that was never the point of life. Really, there is no point of life, but it was never to perfect you, because yeah, how this body is conditioned was never it was never really possible to completely deprogram it anyways.
Mhm.
So what's obvious here is like the programming is quite similar to how the character Suzanne was, but now there's just no ownership of it. It's not mine. And it's more free to just be the way it is. And when there's no ownership, then there's no need to manipulate it by, let's say, trying to perfect it, which I think inevitably is another way of, it can do some harm sometimes by
Mhm.
trying to manipulate it. It's kind of like a never ending loop that just goes
Right.
on and on.
Yeah. So, but what would it be harming?
It would just, yeah, it wouldn't be harming anything. It might just cause more pain and suffering.
Yes. So we're, I keep referring to the questions I have. Uh, um, so we've already covered the owning piece because that's a big part of this, the sense of ownership that just dissolves. But what about the knowing piece? It, does what happens with the sense of knowing?
Mm, yeah. Yeah. There's so many, that's a big part of the freedom, the
Yes.
absolute unknowing. Um, or maybe it's the lack of care that, because the sense of me, it will find a lot of things important. And if I know something, I'm more valuable. Um, it means something. This
Mhm.
is the right way.
Yes.
But when all of the knowing just is seen to be made up in a way,
Yes.
including the sense of I am, I'm here, I exist, I'm real, that is a sort of, that is the root original knowing, I guess.
Mhm.
And so even when that dissolves, all you're left with is boundlessness. There's no here anymore. There's no solidity. And when there's no more absolute truth and reality here, it's obvious that it's nowhere. So that's where the freedom of also speaking comes, because it's known here that every single word is completely made up, and it can
Right.
never it can never touch the so-called truth. It can never grasp it as hard as it tries. It's just impossible.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a real relief to know like no one knows anything.
We just thought we did.
Yeah. Yeah. And we thought we had to know something.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
And the more the better.
Yeah.
And I think this is obvious, but is there any free will or any predetermination?
Mm, no. No, not at all. And yeah, so there is no actual time.
Hmm.
So there's no future. So nothing can really be predicted. This is all, in a way, it's just spontaneous.
Yes.
It's just simply what's happening. And without the mental understanding or overlay of what's happening, we have no idea what's happening really.
Right.
There's all, it's just boundless energy. Um, and the mind, the brain still functions, so it can still interpret things,
Mhm.
but without that, the real solid sense of me, all of that, it doesn't hold any ground anymore. Like there's no actual meaning to it. Um, the need for terms like predetermined or this is destiny or this is even terms like God's will, it can be misinterpreted by the person to think that, okay, I don't have free will, but it's up to God.
Right.
And in a way, I guess you can say that's true, but it's not in the way the person thinks
Mhm.
because God is not an entity. God is just life. Yeah, as long as the me will misinterpret a lot of the things when it's said like that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, nothing can be predetermined. It's if this is already whole, it's already complete. Where is it going to really? What's
Right.
actually moving in time?
Nothing.
Yeah.
You, you may have heard this expression. I don't remember the first time I heard it, but I've heard it for a while. The when there's like a psychological linear time or vertical or horizontal time where the person lives, and then this isn't really time, but there's a horizontal time which has nothing to do with the past and the future, or even now. It's just what's apparently happening. Do you have, is that, is that another way of expressing this?
Mm. Oh yeah, like the vertical is the timelessness and then the
Yes.
horizontal is the me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you can say that. Um, the me's time is completely made up though. It's
Yes.
not actual. Um, but it's amazing. Like when it's in effect, it feels so real and it then it has tentacles everywhere. My past and all of the beliefs and meanings around that and why I'm here, why am I doing what I'm doing? It's probably because of certain things that happened in the past and why I'm going to have these goals in the future. So it's all linked. And that's one of the main reasons why it's so difficult to for all of that to dissolve because it's the meaning is everywhere
Right.
and it's completely time based. It's not only is it imaginary, but it's completely energetic. Time for the person it feels absolutely real. So the future will feel real, the past will feel real. And then if that dissolves, the brain can still function and say 2 p.m. or a week from now.
Right.
But energetically, time disappeared. And it's only this.
Yes. It's interesting. The time really, this functional time, like you said, but the time that where most of us live is purely a projection of the person. There really has no reality to it at all, does
No.
it?
Yeah, it's so amazing though. Like, so with the arising of the real energetic sense of time, then there does come the anxiety of the future or
Right.
the regret or all of these different emotions can arise with it. Pretty amazing.
It is. so 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 basically this what what's already happening is already freedom, is already the boundlessness.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So it's like no matter what you do, it's not going to be any more this. Um that so many misinterpretations can also happen. So it doesn't mean don't do, don't
Right.
act. The body naturally does. But yeah, also what a relief that you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to become more worthy. That's not really a solid actual thing.
Right.
This is already complete.
So yeah, action continues to happen, but there's just no one owning it or thinking it's significant.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite shocking that the reason and the uh yeah, the meaning in why the body's doing what it's doing, that can actually dissolve and the body still just does. Um and I've also noticed like there's a natural survival mechanism in the body, just like an
Hmm.
animal.
Hmm.
And for us humans, money is relatively important just to have relative comfort.
Yes.
So there will be a little bit of, let's say, it's hard to define, but there's some fear and worry if the rent is not going to be paid. So
Right.
the body does because of that.
Right. Right.
And that's built in, it's very natural.
Yes.
And a lot of people worry, like, how are you going to pay the bills if this happens? Or, um, and I will say sometimes there is a period where the body, when it's really going into the unknown
Yes.
and the layers are just peeling away, it's such unknown territory that maybe it does take a bit of time to, the energy needs to settle a bit
Mm.
and it just needs to do what it needs to do. But eventually, like the body, you see that the body's totally capable of taking care of itself. And you were never in charge of taking care of the body. The body was just doing, the body was just living.
Yes. Yes. The first time I heard that was from my wife and I spent a lot of time with Robert Adams. I don't know if you know who he is, but um, he was fully, well, this is part of lineages, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. But he was a fully realized devotee of Ramana Maharshi, and what he said often was, the body takes care of itself. It has nothing to do with a you.
Yeah, it's shocking.
It is. It's shocking.
Yeah.
And so the Susan's life, is there any things that have substantive things that have changed for that life stream since the sense of me dissolved?
Oh, are there major things that changed?
Yes.
Um, for here, honestly, not really. Like the the so-called external seems quite similar. Um, it's just more internally, it's completely at rest.
Hmm.
So no matter what happens, to a large extent, it does not affect because I don't have any attachment to any outcome or how things are. Yeah, there's no need for things to be a certain way. So there's a complete relaxation. And there's also the body's free to do in a way what it wants or what it's natural at. Um, in a way, certain things happened where Suzanne would have really wanted it, would
Mhm.
have been like, oh, that would have meant I really arrived.
Right.
That was her goal in life, you know?
Yes.
But now I can say that it doesn't mean anything. Not that I don't feel gratitude sometimes, not that
Yes.
I'm not like, wow, this is amazing, but it's quite fleeting. It doesn't last very long. Meaning I the energetic meaning behind it, it can't stick to anything.
Right.
So there can be enjoyment, there can be gratitude, there can be wow, this is cool, but really none of that can add to this absolute peace that already is, you know?
Mm.
So more of anything physically, let's say, it just can't energetically add to already complete freedom.
Yeah. What are you going to add to everything?
Yeah.
Mm. Mm. So, anything else? We've covered quite a bit. Is there anything else that comes up to be shared?
Hmm. Um, yeah, what made you interested in like speaking to more of the radical speakers? Because
Oh, yeah.
I I
Go ahead.
remember you on my spiritual path and
Yes.
yeah, I really enjoyed like what you shared and yeah, I was just curious.
Oh, well, yeah, it was just a natural progression. A few years ago, Rhonda Byrne came to me and wanted to put Lester and myself in her book she was doing called The Greatest Secret, as opposed to The Secret. Then it was The Greatest Secret.
Hmm.
And Pete Bissonnette, um, uh, who runs the organization, uh, convinced me I should do a podcast. It's how I started doing a podcast, and I started by interviewing people from The Secret and The Greatest Secret, and and then I kept interviewing people, and I was looking for people to interview, And I started coming across the the radical non-dual message, and I realized that that really there was a deep resonance there, and uh, it the old way I was communicating things started to transform spontaneously.
Wow.
It just made it. I know it doesn't really make sense on one level, on a to a mind, but on some level, it made just total sense, and I couldn't help but again, I've never felt like I was doing any of this. The teaching does itself. So it started doing itself differently.
Nice.
and and I just found that talking since I was doing these interviews anyway, and I really resonated with the way that it was being expressed for those speakers. I decided, why not expose, I have a very large community. I said, why don't I expose my whole community, not just to how it's changed here, but how uh, the 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 apparent source of hearing about that way of perceiving it was coming from. So
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful.
yeah, it was completely spontaneous,
Yeah.
as all things are.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's interesting too. Is the weird thing is that the teaching or the expressing of this, sometimes it's still a teaching where it's talking to a person, and then all the tools from the Sedona method tool chest still seem to apply. And many of the people who come to us are not really interested in radical non-duality. They want to have better experience.
Hmm.
And so if there's that is genuinely what they're looking for, then the old way of teaching comes through.
Yeah.
And then when there's an openness to people from no one, I guess, but when there's an openness, then it comes through as just this pure expression of the freedom that already is.
Oh,
So I don't
yeah.
know if how it will evolve in supposed time, but that's just how it is now.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's similar to how it is here. Because I think there was so much, let's say, um, like healing of the wounded child kind of work and
Hmm.
trauma healing that that is what's applied when I feel like it's relevant.
Yes,
And then when there is really just a natural openness to the simplicity of this, then that is more what's focused on or communicated.
yes,
So it's very natural. Just,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. It kind of flows back and forth.
Mm-hmm. And nothing's off limits. It doesn't matter anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone wants to know how to have more money, there are things that help with that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Even though I'm not helping and they're not doing it, but it doesn't matter.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Because
Yeah.
improving the personal experience isn't, yeah, better or worse than anything else. Like,
No, it's exactly the same.
yeah, yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. And I still feel that I've felt grateful uh, for decades, being that this body mind was in this particular position, but now there's just gratitude
Hmm.
that comes and goes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it kind of feels amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does.
yeah. Mm. You've definitely been a big part of I think I read The Greatest Secret because maybe you had promoted it or something.
Yes.
And yeah, it was quite profound when I had
Yes.
read it
Yes.
back
Yes.
then. Yeah.
But even when it was there as the focus, there was this deep knowingness that there was something beyond just awareness.
Yeah.
Even though that was a huge improvement for most people, there was something beyond that,
Yeah.
and it was way simpler.
Yeah. It's actually the beauty of nothing.
Right. Yes. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Suzanne Chang. You can learn more about Suzanne at suzannechang.net. That's SUZANNECHANG.net. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe so you have immediate access to future episodes. Please give us a 5-star rating and share it with the people you care about. If you'd like to learn more about my work, my mentor Lester Levenson's work, and the Sedona method, please visit www.sedona.com. As you explore our site, you'll learn the key to lasting happiness, success, peace, and emotional well-being. We have books, courses, events, and plenty of free material to explore. Again, go to sedona.com. That's SEDONA.com. Thank you for being here, and we'll catch you in the next episode of Letting Go and the Greatest Secret.